you a woman in medicine feeling overwhelmed and disconnected from the personal fulfillment that you desire? You're in the right place. Join doctors Joanne and Aaron as they rewrite the rules for women in medicine. Let's begin.
Did you know that nearly half of adults report having increased stress levels from November until January? And that time also correlates with the time of year that many of us are celebrating our biggest holidays. So in this episode, I will be interviewing expert and co-host Dr. Joanne Sotelo about how we can raise our awareness and get ahead of these issues so that you can enjoy this time of year in maybe the way you're hoping to. Joanne, I would love to hear from you. What are some of the big issues that can overlay that stress during this time of year?
Thank you, Erin. I believe it's so important for us to talk at this time of the year about not just the holiday blues, but then also seasonal affective disorder. And as a psychiatrist, I don't like to take that much time off during the holidays because people do struggle more. Actually, around August and September, I start asking my patients, how do you do during the holidays? And just to see if we need to do any adjustments, if we need to increase our visits. But this is not just something that I see as a psychiatrist. Like Erin mentioned, this is a very common struggle because it's not just the extreme of having the depression. We all have higher stressors, and then some people do struggle more with the holiday blues. And if I can start with some definitions too, so we know what we're talking about. So the way kind of the books define holiday blues, it's transient. I cannot pronounce that word well, but transient. Thank you. Yeah, my English. Sadness and stress. And then with that, you have sleep changes and then a disruption in your routine. If you've dealt with grief, any kind of grief, you'll feel it more. And there's always more money and family pressure. It's very common, like Erin said, but it's not like, I'm going to use a big word, pathologic, meaning it's not like you need to see someone for this, or it's not like you need medication, but it is important to be aware of it because, yes, there are things that we can do. And there are some people who are more vulnerable than others, and it can put you at risk of developing then symptoms of depression. So I'll talk about that. Then SAD, which stands for seasonal affective disorder, by the book, literally by our psychiatry books, it's symptoms of major depressive disorder with a seasonal pattern. More frequently, like Erin said, during this, like November to January, although there are also people who get this in the summer, but it's less common. And so, again, to review some of I'll put my psychiatry hat on. So some of the symptoms of major depressive disorder include low mood, low motivation, low kind of desire to do things. It's more of what we see in the seasonal pattern than an actual restless. We end up more tired, wanting to sleep more. And of course, if it's worse, it can also show up with a sense of worthlessness, helplessness, hopelessness, wishing to be dead or having suicidal thoughts. Of course, if these things happen, do seek help right away. We'll make sure, as always, to add resources. And I'll add here that Erin and I are both physicians, and we are so honored that we can use this platform to share some of our knowledge. But that's what we're doing here, sharing knowledge, what's important. It's never meant to substitute medical care. So if something that we say, you're like, oh, I think I'm struggling with that, it might be a good time to check in with your physician or a psychiatrist. So a little note here. And of course, like always, if there are suicidal thoughts, you can also call the suicide hotline, which is 411. So that's awesome. So if you are ever having any kind of suicidal thought, please know that there is an actual suicide hotline, which is 988. And if you need other resources, there's also the NIMH. So, and we'll add some other resources to our show notes.
So helpful, Joanne, having a better understanding of the holiday blues and seasonal affective disorder. And I wonder, sometimes our expectations can contribute to things seeming like they're worse than maybe they are. Could you dive into that a little bit?
Yes, and this is the conversation that we need to have if we're thinking about prevention. And like Erin and I were talking before this podcast, and she was saying how as physicians, we are so good at dealing with the stressor right in front of us and fixing it. And yet we don't always look back and think about prevention, and especially if there's been patterns. So that's even a good first question. If you think back in the last years, how have you done during the holidays? I know for myself, every year I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to plan ahead of time. And of course, my kids are older now, so it's not that big of a deal. But when they were younger, thinking, what I'm going to buy the gifts and I'm going to wrap them up and the house is going to be decorated this way. And then his family is coming over. I'm the super host. So I want everyone to get their favorite things and their favorite meals. And on top of that, I am working probably more hours than I normally work. And then not just more hours. Usually I'm seeing people are, again, dealing with more stressors. So I set these high expectations for myself, and then I'm wondering, why am I tired? Why am I stressed out? Why am I just ready for this season to be over, even though it's one of my favorite things? And I hear this so often, and I'm sure you do too, Erin, of how, especially as women in medicine, we always have high expectations, which is a great thing, but then we just feel like we have to do it all. Our perfectionism kicks in, comparison kicks in. We want to please everyone. We might not be taking care of ourselves in the same way, so we're not recharging the batteries as much. And some of us do not like to go outside when it's sunny, right? I mean, when it's cold. And so you might just be off of your routine. We were talking before that I went on a run this morning, and I had to think about it so much because it was 40 some degrees in Texas, which is not common. Anyway, so I'm talking here a lot, but think about it for yourself if you're listening. What are the expectations that you're setting yourself up to ahead of time? Because they are not always external. They're frequently internal, which can be beautiful, that we want to have the best season and also then stress ourselves out. And then let me talk about the other side of the coin. Some people do not like the holidays, and then we're not supposed to say that out loud. This is a season, and I'm going to do air quotes, that where we're supposed to be happy. We're supposed to be in family. And it's okay to think of, you know what? I don't. Thinking about the Thanksgiving dinner gives me horrible anxiety. I don't want to be sitting at a table with all my family members and talk about politics or things I don't want to talk about. And that is okay as well. And the important thing is for you to have awareness and plan around it and have plan B, have plan C, and making sure that you're not asking something unreasonable about yourself.
That's so important, Joanne. And one of the things I wrote down is the power of reflection. And you talked about pattern recognition. And if we don't spend time to pause and go, how did the last holiday season go? How did I do, before? How much help did I ask for? And then what can I learn from that? Can you make this year's holiday season easier by, we can talk more about that, but what are the things that you can do to change? And we can talk about that next, Joanne. But if you never take the time to pause and reflect, it will be really hard to learn from not only what didn't go well, but what did go well, so you can replicate that. So Joanne, as always, we love to hear from you. What are your ideas on what can we do about this upcoming season to try and have the best outcomes?
We know that part of the reason that we have a higher risk of mood changes during this season is because of shorter days. And then we don't have the same exposure to sunlight and vitamin D. And then it also changes our sleep patterns, right? Like our brain works different this times of the year. And there's other hypotheses, but that's kind of a good thing to focus on because it's something that we can work around. And it's good to have a morning light ritual. I would say keep your windows open, even though it sounds like electricity waste. Keep a lot of lights on. There's actually, if it's severe, very specific light therapy that you would need to, check in, make sure that it's something that you need. But overall, being outside, especially in the morning without sunglasses, because a lot of those sun rays get absorbed through the eyes, it's so important. So that's one thing. And if you can't go outside, again, just keep your house very bright early on. And the other side of that coin is protect your nighttime routine more than ever during this whole year, because actually we are recording the weekend the time changes, and it can create a lot of mood and sleep changes for people, even if it's not like a problem per se. So just pay attention, be gentle with yourself, have compassion, but know this is very important. So limit the light exposure at night. That's an easy way to kind of help that, what we call circadian rhythms, for it's kind of like the sleep architecture in our brain, kind of. And again, there's other specifics that you can think of in terms of red orange lights during the day, and then more of the blues at night. You might see people wearing the sunglasses that have those different shades. That's usually to complement kind of that sleep wake architecture in our brain. So those are two things right there. Then, like always, let's go back to basics. It's important to have some kind of physical movement, eat well, get your protein, and take care of yourself a little bit more. Be careful with overeating, because this is a time to overeat, but do nourish yourself well. So this is very important. Again, more in terms of medical information, but if you struggle a little bit more, where kind of a key differentiator is, like the way I say, it's your mood could be a little down, your energy and motivation could be a little down, but if it feels like you really have to crank yourself up every day, you feel like your day-to-day functioning is affected in a negative way, when you're not enjoying almost anything, of course, if there's sense of hopelessness, any suicidal thoughts, then that's a time where you definitely should see someone. And there are medications that are helpful during this time of the year if needed. And there's also kind of prescription light therapy that you can use as well in conjunction or just by itself for this. The other thing I want to mention here, which I think we all need to hear, going back to the expectations, what are the boundaries that you have to set ahead of time? Not just externally to protect what's important to you, but internally, right? Like, again, what are you going to say yes to? How many more things are you going to add to your list? How can you leverage help instead of believing that you have to do it all yourself? Those are, again, like a little twist of the things that we typically talk about that are more important this time of the year. And I say, if you're at a party, at a family gathering, just always have an exit strategy. If you need to leave, right? Or set the boundaries of how many hours. Set the boundaries ahead of time of what you're going to talk about. I know, like sharing something personal, I sometimes when I didn't like the conversations happening, I became the babysitter. I'm going to go check on the kids, or I'm going to do dishes. I'm going to clean, just to step away gently. You don't have to say it out loud. That's an internal boundary. You set your own limit and you say, you know what? I need a little break. Or if you need to leave early, if you need to just go to the bathroom and stay there for 10 minutes, like no one will ask you. But sometimes those are little things that we can think of to add breaks and make sure don't add stressors by spending more money than you want to, or saying yes to more things that you need to say yes to. Again, I can talk on and on about this, but Erin, I would love to hear from you. How are the holidays for you? What have you seen in some of the women that you coach?
Well, I have an example of this. I was recently at a book club with other women physicians, and it was a smallish size gathering. And at the end, multiple people said, "Oh, can I help you with the dishes? Can I help you clean up?" And the host said, No, that's okay. I've got it. I don't have to go in tomorrow morning. I've got this." And as you say about saying yes to fewer things, one of the things I would encourage our listener to do is practice saying yes when somebody offers you help. So I thought, okay, this person could have divided their work in done a sixth of the work, and it would have taken us all maybe 10 minutes to clean up. And maybe the host enjoys that. But to me, it was one of those where I would love to see more women in medicine honoring others by saying yes when help is offered. Our default mode is, oh, I've got this. And yet, as you say, what are the things I enjoy about the holidays? What I love about the holidays is my family, I am not afraid to ask them to help and pitch in. And everybody does pitch in to their ability. And so it's, and if something doesn't go right, we just let go of that. So having that grace, I know we've had some recent episodes about having grace and self-compassion. So, expectations, what are you going to wear? When we had holidays at my mom's, when she hosted, we wore our fancy stuff. We had to do hair and makeup, plus the fancy turkey dinner, all of those things. And in my household, some of us like to dress up and some people like to come in jeans or shorts, and that's all okay. It's not that there's, you must follow these strict rules. So having some flexibility, and that the biggest thing though is asking for help, allowing people to do the dishes with you and for you, maybe hiring some extra help leading up to or following so that there's not such a heavy load, so we can spend more time enjoying the time with our family instead of worrying about the extra stress from, the extra dishes or, the extra, how, people staying at our house, whatever those extra stresses are, what's in your control that you can do to eliminate some of that. And so we can better enjoy our time together.
And you made me think of something else that we can add as a recommendation is just asking the simple question of, what do you want your holidays to look like this year? What's one tradition you don't want to follow anymore? And maybe what's a new tradition that you want to start? Make it be whatever you want to have it be, so that you enjoy it. You remember what's important. You get your connection. Hopefully you get some rest as well. Also important. And yes, to asking and accepting help.
Yeah, so powerful. Joanne, you shared such great awareness about what are the holiday blues and seasonal affective disorder, some of the things that can be done about them, and the red flag warnings on when to seek help. And then also just our own expectations, what we bring to the table, and are we making it more difficult for ourselves during this season when people are already experiencing more stress? And then lots of ideas about what we can do for it. Joanne, any additional wisdom you have to share with our listener?
Yes, I have a few things that came to mind. First, we recorded on this topic last year, and we had a few, I believe, Erin has the Supermaster list, that it was episode 44 and 45.
49 were all about holiday issues.
So definitely go back and listen to those and feel free to share. But I want to say more of like a little bit of a challenge in a good way. Pick something that you can start this week to anchor with the intention that your holidays are going to be even better this year. So are you going to wake up 10 minutes earlier so you can get some sunlight? Are you going to go to bed 15 minutes earlier? Maybe send a few voice notes to a friend to boost connection. Remember, a lot of people struggle with grief and isolation this time of the year. So maybe lending a hand to someone you know is in need. And something that I feel called to say is, if you're struggling, if you feel like your mood is sliding, please don't just buckle up. That is definitely not just, and I don't mean buckle up, don't white knuckle is what I wanted to say. Don't just suffer in silence. Please talk to a friend, call your primary care physician, and don't struggle by yourself. Please do seek help.
So helpful. And with that, we hope you have found this episode helpful as we prepare for the upcoming months. If you did find it helpful and you think somebody else might benefit, share this with them and give us a rating and review. And with that, we also want to encourage you to stay tuned for our next episode. As the holiday season is upon us and shopping season is upon us, the next episode is going to talk about the topic of anti-consumerism. So we hope you'll stay tuned and we'll see you there.
Do you want exclusive resources and the opportunity to connect with us? Then visit createmeaninginmedicine.com now, where you'll dive deeper into how you can create meaning in medicine. And if you're serious about optimizing your results, take 2 quick steps now. Connect with us on the website and tune in to the next episode.